You're listening to the Codependent Millennial Podcast with Sophie Shilo, episode 41, Overcoming Your Obstacles to Healing. Hello, loves. There are a lot of you listening, which is so wonderful and so humbling. And I know that I've connected with some of you, but there are so many of you out there whose names I don't know, whom I've never spoken to. So if you're one of those people, I'm saying hi to you now. I just want to take a little moment now to connect. Sarah, Pooja, James, Lucy, Matt, Catherine, Shoshana, Deja, Zahara, Ilana, Lisa, Kim, Riza, anyone else out there listening right now, hi, I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for choosing to spend this time with me. Today, I want to address a question that I've been getting from a lot of people recently about how to help others along their journeys. This question and this concept has come to me in a few different forms over the past 2 weeks. Number one client asked me in our private Slack channel, quote, "What kind of counselor am I if I can't fix the people I love the most? I'm one who can't help. And since my personal identity is so tied to my job, it feels like an attack on my personal identity." End quote. Number two, another client told me that she's been encouraging a couple of her friends to join the Codependency Cure Mentorship, and she asked me, quote, "How do you encourage people when they say they want help, but then they don't follow through on what they say they want? I think they should join, but they aren't following through on it." End quote. Number three, another new client who just joined the mentorship wrote to me and she said, quote, "I just wanted to let you know I paid the invoice. I didn't make excuses and I didn't justify not spending the money. I really feel like I'm ready to see the changes that I've been desperately searching for and trying to achieve unsuccessfully. Thank you for believing in me." End quote. So why did I give these examples? For a few reasons. Number one of the biggest symptoms of codependency is wrapping up our sense of self-worth on the role we play in other people's lives. Like the first client I mentioned, if we aren't able to control people around us to the extent that we want to, we'll make it mean all kinds of discouraging and unloving things about ourselves. Untangling this is something that this client and I are working on continuously in the mentorship, but if this resonated with you as something that you're doing in your own life, explore that, because your identity and your worth do not lie in your ability to quote unquote fix other people. It's a big quote unquote on fix. Number two, a lot of you codependents listening might want to overcome your own resistance to healing or getting help, and you totally can. But sometimes you want to help other people overcome their resistance, but you can't do that. There's a limit there, and that's a really important element of maintaining your own sanity in relationships. You can only control you, and other people can only control themselves. You can only ultimately make decisions for yourself, and you must let other people do the same. You cannot commit for someone else, and someone else can't commit to something for you. You have to commit for yourself and vice versa. You want to change people and wake them up. It's a very codependent thing I hear all the time, and that I myself have said countless times in my life, you guys. I just want to change them. I just want to fix them. I just want to help them. You can't. There's a limit. There's an extent to which you can help or support someone, and it's finite. It is limited. Your capacity to have an impact in someone else's life is limited. You can plant a seed, as one of my other clients mentioned. You can plant a seed and you can love someone where they are, and a lot of times that's it. You can't change anyone. You can't save anyone. You can't, quote unquote, make someone see something that they don't want to see or aren't ready to see. You can't make someone feel a certain way. You cannot. It doesn't matter how much proof you have or how sincere you are or how hard you try. You also need to check in here with yourself about where you might be believing the story, the untrue story, that you know what's best for someone else, that you know what they should or shouldn't be doing with their life. That is also a really fantastic way to exhaust yourself and to create resentment and judgment in your relationships with others. So when I was answering this client's question about, how do I help people when they're not following through, I don't really encourage or convince anyone to do this work, to go to therapy, to get coaching from me specifically, ever. A crucial part of this work being permanent and effective is really coming to it on your own and not being swayed or cajoled or convinced by anyone. The process of overcoming one's own resistance and blocks to healing is an essential part of their process. Do not take that away from them. If someone is on the fence, I don't try to get them to come to the coaching side of the fence unless they literally ask me to, which has happened. People will say things like, quote, I really want to do this. I know I need to, but I'm really, really scared and I would love some coaching around really making this decision and working through my fear. Great. That's when I can jump in with some powerful coaching to show someone the thoughts and beliefs that are holding them back from doing something that they really want to do in their lives. But convincing and trying to control their decision without consent, I would never, ever do that. It doesn't serve me and it does not serve the person I'm talking to. Me trying to decide for them that they're ready and that they should take this path, that is not going to work. When I get on calls with people who have applied for the mentorship, for example, I tell them that this is really hard work and I make sure they're really committed before I decide to let them join the group. If they're not, it's not going to work. They're going to abandon themselves when the boundary setting gets hard, or they're going to let their self-doubt win when they're making decisions about their lives. And that means that they're just not ready in the way that they need to be for this work to be the most effective and permanent. Let's talk about being ready for a second before we move on, quote unquote, ready. Look, I do really believe in making decisions that we feel intuitively called to make, even when we don't think we're fully ready yet. I think we could all benefit from taking risks or making decisions to do things before we think we're really ready. Ready, quote unquote, ready is often this made up perfectionist dream, this concept that people want to have before they make a decision so that they can get the certainty and the guarantee of success before they take action. That will keep you stuck. That is not a recipe for success. That's not a recipe for you making sure that all the ducks are in a row so that everything just, goes perfectly like a well-aligned strip of dominoes. Like, that's not how that works. That is a recipe for stagnation. You will never be perfectly, fully ready. And if you wait for that moment, you will be waiting indefinitely, maybe forever. Number 3. With this client, the client who wrote to me and said, I just wanted to let you know I paid the invoice. I didn't make excuses. I didn't justify not spending the money. I'm really ready. Thank you for believing in me. Let's do this. So with this client, before her call, we actually had to reschedule, and she told me ahead of time. It's so funny. I love telling you guys this story. She told me ahead of time that if we rescheduled for too far in the future, that she would find a reason to cancel and that she would not pursue healing her codependency at all. She knew herself so well, and she was being honest with herself about that in that moment. She was not willing to stand in her own way anymore. She asked me to help her make this decision that she wanted to do. She basically said, look, I know I want to do this. I know I'll convince myself to back out. I just need a little bit of coaching around my fear so that I can actually take this step, so that I really follow through with this. It was so great. It was such a fun conversation because then, we could open it up and look at, okay, let's really look. Where is your mind telling you that this thing you really want is a terrible idea? And that was a blast. But if someone, if she had gotten in the call and she just kind of vaguely wanted to do the work and she had kind of like chase me, convince me energy, I'd be like, no, like I'll be here when you're ready. Bye for now. You're definitely not in the space you need to be. So again, this woman that I'm talking about, she did not feel perfectly, amazingly, just divinely ready and fearless and invincible. She was feeling a mixture of things. She was feeling determination and conviction and fear and excitement and readiness and uncertainty, all of it. But she knew what she wanted, and that knowing was so much stronger than the uncertainty and the fear and the what ifs. And that, you guys, that is what is going to ensure that her healing is deep and permanent and all her own. The decision was her own. She had to contend with her own fears, her own objections, her own resistance in order to give herself this gift. She overcame her obstacles to healing. She's already won. Over the next 6 months, she and I, doing work in this mentorship, yes, we're going to do more together to heal all of the areas in her life that are touched by codependency. But literally just the act of joining the mentorship was a transformation that she chose to go through. It was a radical step that she chose to take for herself. And another part that I just have to share with you all is when I emailed her to ask her permission to tell her story on the podcast, she wrote back to me and she said, yes, of course, you can tell the story. And she said, and I'm so excited that my story can hopefully help someone else get the kick in the butt they need. P.S. I'm really looking forward to next week. And this is just so perfect because she got to the point where she was willing to give herself that kick in the butt. She really knew, look, this ends now. Like, my codependency has gotten to a point at which I'm no longer willing to continue letting it affect my life in these ways. And she was able to go through that really special, very personal experience of like engaging with her own mind and her own doubts and saying, no, we are doing this. And I know that for me, before I took steps in my life that I was terrified to take, but that I knew were going to serve me, steps that I was scared to take, but that I knew were so good to me and that so good for me and that my soul was like calling for, that again, hearing stories of people wrestling with their own minds and their own fears, that was a huge part of my process. So I love that she knew that, and that she let me tell her story here on this podcast. So if you are ready to take this step for yourself, come join us in the Codependency Cure Mentorship. This next round is starting on March 1st, and there are only 3 spots left. So if you are ready to get support around building a life you truly love well beyond your codependency, apply now at codependentmillennial.com. Once you fill out your application, we will schedule a call together so that I can learn more about you, about your story, your goals, your struggles with codependency, etc. And we'll decide from there together if we're both a perfect match to work together. Whatever obstacles you've been facing that are keeping you from healing your codependency, it's time to break free. Apply for the mentorship today so that we can talk about how you can move past all your internal resistance and truly become the powerful, joyful, liberated woman you've always wanted to be. I'll talk to you soon. Have a beautiful week. If you liked what you heard in this episode, join me over on Instagram at Codependent Millennial for more tips on how to move beyond codependency and build a life you truly love.